So we're back at 2025 InsurTech Hartford Symposium. I do so many of these, I forget. Like, I still want to say PLRB conference, Indianapolis, but the InsurTech Hartford Symposium 2025 conference. Who am I speaking with?
My name is Bob Frady. I am the CEO and co-founder of PropertyLens.
So I think a lot of my audience will know who you are. I'm your kid brother, and they will know you from your prior role. But before we get into any of that, what the heck is PropertyLens?
Very simply, you can think of it as a CarFax for houses. You wouldn't buy a used car without a CarFax. Why buy a used house without a PropertyLens?
Just in case there's someone in the audience that doesn't know what CarFax is.
I've run across that.
Okay,
Yes.
explain CarFax, and then we can go into the detail about PropertyLens. CarFax is ubiquitous.
Yes.
So people buying cars, they get this thing. But what is a CarFax report?
It's a history report of that car. When it's been serviced, has it been in an accident, any title changes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very simple list of things that have happened to that particular car.
Eliminates a little bit of the buying the lemon dilemma of you get a car and you didn't realize, oh, this was the car that was flooded during Hurricane Sandy.
Yep.
And now I own it with all of its issues.
Exactly. And so we try to do that base level of gathering all the data that we can to come up with a timeline for the property, but also add a lot of intelligence on top of it to say, I'm walking into this house. What should I be looking out for before I walk into the house and before I fall in love with it and before I start to put the furniture in different places and then find out later, oh yeah, it was flooded in Hurricane Ian. So we try to give people that knowledge before they make one of the most expensive decisions of their life.
You conducted a report on my property in Florida, and that was interesting because the three of us had different things, which is something that different buyers will have. They'll have different areas of concern around that, but every property, even new ones, like have areas of concern because if it's not the property itself, it's what it's exposed to.
Exactly.
As well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We measure things at the house, but we also measure things around the house. Where's the nearest SuperFund site? Where's the nearest flood zone? What's the wildfire risk from that area? All sorts of things that you would never find in a home inspection report. And your insurance agent probably isn't going to tell you. We tell you that before you even walk in the door.
Just a side note, I probably should have gotten a PropertyLens report for the Airbnb I stayed at last night in Hartford, but that's a different story for a different time. What perils can the PropertyLens report capture?
All the big ones: flood, wildfire, wind, hail, tornado, lightning, frozen pipes, winter weather, exposure to radon, exposure to termites. Those aren't really perils, but all the big ones, both the major perils and the minor perils.
So even in a place like Minnesota or Michigan, which I think a lot of folks would say, oh, that's not a cat area. We have found out recently from our mutual friend, Curtis Goldsboro, that you can get an ice storm in Michigan and it can knock out power for several days, which can wreak havoc. It highlights all of those things.
Minnesota premiums have gone up 50% in the last 3 years, and it's because of hail. They had a $2 billion hail loss in 2021, I believe it was. And so the premiums have all gone up. Now, if your roof is more than 10 years old, you may have trouble getting insured. We can tell you how old the roof is based upon a combination of MLS data, permit data, and aerial imagery.
So how are you distributing these reports?
Direct to consumer through our site at propertylens.com. We also have an API for people who want to consume the data by itself. So it really depends upon the user and how they want to use data.
So it could be really valuable for brokers, for instance, who would like to essentially potentially differentiate themselves from other brokers and having this available for prospects or policyholders.
Exactly. In the insurance industry, I'll tell you a story. My insurance agent has no idea how big my house is and has never talked to me about perils because they've never been there. They don't know this data. Now, if somebody else came along saying, hey, this is all the stuff I see, would I listen to them? Of course I would. Now, does that make a difference in your ability to sell a policy? For the smart agents, of course. The smart brokers, of course. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting.
Probably also valuable for realtors.
Well, they get a little scared because they're like,
they don't want to lose the transaction.
Your job as a selling agent especially is to tell people how beautiful their house is. And we're like, your baby's a little ugly, and here's the things that you want to be aware of.
Yeah. But I almost feel like we're turning a corner where I think buyers recognize that I want more information, accurate information. This is a big investment in similar to the way cars are sold or anything else, like the old ways of ABCs always be closing, like this digital environment, our buying habits have changed. And frankly, like we don't want to go through the bullshit of having someone constantly close us. And I think it'd be wise for a realtor to differentiate themselves from all the other ones that are like fluffing up these things and essentially saying, no, I want to give you all of the information so you can make the best possible decision and not try to build something up. Seems like a good new sales model for them.
We call it transparency. The seller knows this much, the buyer knows a lot less. We're just trying to shrink that gap about knowledge, because there's always things you still want to look out for. But instead of giving you just the data, we also give you a series of questions to ask, to say, when you walk in here, make sure you ask the seller's agent this and this, because they might not know the answer, especially if the house is turned over recently. You might discover something from 6 or 7 years ago. You want to make sure that it was fixed.
So we go way back.
Yeah.
We go back to when we were arm wrestling whether InsurTech should have an E or not. Actually, between us, we go back to rub some salt on it.
Yeah.
That's an inside.
Children should be seen and not heard.
That's an inside joke. The hurricane deck chairs.
Salt water.
Yeah. But we've seen a lot. InsurTech has rapidly changed, but some things stay the same.
Yep.
Where do you think we stand around this? Have it being someone who's now on InsurTech startup number 2 and has had a successful exit?
I think we're not as far as we should be. And the reason is because many carriers' customers are not the insureds. They're the brokers or the agents. And so all the InsurTech, not all of it, but a lot of the InsurTech work is focused on the policyholder and not the intermediary. And until we solve that problem and get the intermediaries brought along, it's going to be slow going. Now, we're making progress, but it is a longer hill to climb, I think, than people have given credit for.
And final question is, do you like my hat?
Love your hat. I'm going to steal this. He doesn't know it yet, but you'll see Bald Nick in a couple of more episodes.
Where are you originally from?
From Boston. That's the City Connect hat. And you don't see the hat very often. You see the shirt a lot. You don't see the hat very often.
We're both from Boston.
617. Ada.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Bye.